September 13th, 1848. A 25-year-old man survives an accident that, by all accounts, should have killed him instantly.
We're talking about a 3-foot, 13-pound iron rod shooting completely through his skull at over 600 miles per hour. But here's the wild part. He didn't just survive. Minutes later, he stood up, spoke clearly, and walked over to a cart. Yet the man who walked away from that explosion, he was not the same man who woke up that morning. What happened to him next fundamentally changed psychology and neuroscience forever. This is the true story of Phineas Gage.
Section 1. The Impossible Accident, Vermont, 1848. So, Phineas Gage was a railroad foreman. To his crew, he was known as calm, responsible, hardworking, and well-liked. In fact, his employers described him as their absolute most efficient and capable worker. On that particular September afternoon, Gage was using that iron tamping rod to pack explosive powder into a drilled rock to clear the way for new railroad tracks. But a spark ignited the powder early. The resulting explosion sent the rod rocketing upward. It entered just below his left cheekbone, passed right behind his left eye, and exited straight through the top of his skull. It finally landed nearly 80 feet away, completely covered in blood and brain tissue. Naturally, his crew expected him to be dead. Instead, within minutes, Gage was reportedly talking. He actually rode sitting completely upright in an ox cart just to get medical help. A local doctor named John Martin Harlow treated his wounds, and against all impossible odds, within months, Gage had physically recovered.
Section 2. No longer Gage, the psychological shift. He was healed, physically at least, but something had fundamentally changed.
The same man who was once patient, reliable, and deeply respected by everyone became, in the exact words of the people who knew him best, no longer Gage.
His friends and co-workers now described him as impulsive, highly irritable, foul-mouthed, and completely unable to stick to plans. He'd make decisions only to just abandon them moments later. He ultimately lost his job because his employers, even though they were amazed by his physical recovery, felt his judgment simply could no longer be trusted around the other men.
What happened was that Gage had lost a significant portion of his frontal lobe. Specifically, he lost the exact areas that we now understand are absolutely critical for personality regulation, impulse control, and decision-making.
Section 3. Mapping the Brain, a Radical Discovery. You see, this was one of the very first documented cases in medical history to show something entirely radical for the time. Your personality, your impulse control, your whole sense of self, they aren't separate from your brain. They're produced by it. If you damage a specific part of the brain, you can fundamentally alter who a person is, while somehow leaving their intelligence and physical body completely intact.
Before Gage, many scientists honestly believed the brain just functioned as one unified whole, that all mental functions were sort of distributed equally everywhere. But Gage's case became one of the earliest pieces of evidence for what we now call localization of function. That's the idea that specific regions of the brain are directly responsible for specific psychological traits.
And modern neuroscience completely backs this up. We now know that the frontal lobe, specifically the prefrontal cortex, governs impulse control, long-term planning, social behavior, and emotional regulation. In fact, damage to this exact region in modern patients consistently produces symptoms that are strikingly similar to what Gage's friends described: impulsivity, poor judgment, and major personality shifts.
Section 4. The Biological Self, a Philosophical Question. This single accident back in 1848 didn't just lay the groundwork for modern neuropsychology. It also raises a profound question that philosophers and scientists are literally still debating today.
Think about it. If your personality can be altered just by physical damage to your brain, how much of you is actually just a biological process, rather than a fixed, unchangeable self?
Gage's story is so much more than just historical trivia. It's this powerful reminder that the brain isn't just where you think, it's where you are. Your patience, your self-control, your ability to plan ahead, all the things that make you, they come from a physical organ, an organ that can be changed, damaged, or even strengthened over time.
Section 5. Brain Health and Identity, Modern Implications. And really, this is exactly why modern psychology takes brain health so seriously today.
Everyday things like sleep deprivation, severe stress, and chronic substance use can actually impact the prefrontal cortex in ways that mirror, obviously on a much smaller scale, what happened to Gage in a single instant. As for Phineas Gage, he actually lived for nearly 12 more years after his accident. He eventually found work and some level of stability before passing away in 1860. Today, his skull and that very same iron rod are still preserved at Harvard Medical School's Warren Anatomical Museum.
So the next time you feel like yourself, calm, patient, totally in control, just remember that that feeling is being actively generated by a few cubic inches of tissue right behind your forehead, and it can change a whole lot more than you might think.
So, what's the most surprising part of this story for you? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And if real, mind-bending cases like this fascinate you, make sure to subscribe. We've got plenty more explainers on the events that completely changed how we understand the human mind.